Hello, how are you? My name is Lindsay, and welcome to Show Business. We're over here on my 2 cents of nonsense once again because CP is still a bad boy, still in YouTube jail. And I should turn off the video over here so I'm not hearing myself from 15 seconds ago talking.
Indeed. That's a rookie move.
The intro. Yeah, you see, I'm getting the dust off, learning the ropes. I'm gonna have a Rocky montage, and I'm gonna know what I'm doing.
You're gonna figure it out, and then we're gonna need to go back.
Exactly. But that's enough out of my ugly mouth. Let's CP. How you doing today, buddy? What's going on?
I'm good. I'm glad to be back on a Monday. It's been a while since we've done Monday, right? Haven't we been on a couple of hiccup dates?
I feel correct. Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, it's had some jumping about whether it was sickness or whether it was scheduling. I mean, all kinds of different things. But as the saying goes, life comes at you fast, man.
Sure.
You know? So, I am Jaime Infuego, and from the Horror Show channel and Infuegotainment, both on the respective YouTubies. So, yeah, stoked to be here too.
Thanks for carrying me, guys.
So I'll read the weekend that was January 31st through September. What the fuck? January 31st through February 2nd. Notably, it was Super Bowl Sunday, so that tends to fare into a less well-performing weekend.
I didn't even watch it. No.
Yeah. Bad Boys for Life in first again with 17.6 million, 1917. In second again with 9.4 million. Doolittle in third again with 7.5 million. Gretel and Hansel, the new release of the weekend, with 6.1 million. And rounding out the top five is Jumanji with 6 million. Interestingly enough, the rhythm section, which also released this weekend on 3,049 screens, which is more than Gretel and Hansel, opened to 2.7 million, good enough for 10th.
Yeah, sorry, Mrs. Van Wilder in that regard. Yeah, that was one that I had early screening too, and I skipped. I was just like, I'm not really feeling this sort of thing so much. So,
yeah, most of the country did just that.
I actually, it's funny. I went to the theater to actually see Rhythm Section, but I got held up on traffic, and so by the time I got there, I missed it, but in exchange, I saw Gretel and Hansel, and I absolutely loved it. So I don't really have that much regrets about it.
Yeah, what's funny is Rhythm Section is the lowest per theater average.
Wow.
Up until 18th, which is Ford v Ferrari. The Oscar-nominated short films came in 17th, yet had a $2,484 per theater average. Rhythm Section had $890 per theater. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm seeing those shorts this week, both the animated and the live action. So I'm stoked. Not the documentaries, though, unfortunately, but lots of preparation for next Sunday, obviously. So.
Fun stuff. I'm always really bad about seeing the shorts, and I every year I'm like, I'm gonna do it, and then I don't. So I'm gonna say now I'm gonna try, but we'll see what happens.
Well, yeah, theaters tend to do something, especially lately, where you can get a ticket and binge all the Best Picture nominees, shorts. What they really should start doing is the documentaries and foreign film stuff too. That would be neat if they started doing that. But
yeah, it's underloved in that regard, regrettably. But I'm gonna put that A-list to work this week, guys. I'm excited.
Parasite's gonna win anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
It's gonna win. It's not gonna win Best Picture. It's gonna win Best Short. So.
Oh, so did you see there was some sort of shit to piggyback on Parasite just for a hot second? The BAFTAs were this weekend.
They were. I was gonna bring them up, but
we can wait.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I mean, this is there's no better time than now with everything going down. So
sure. So Bong Joon-ho won Best Director, and there was, I don't know if it was implied or it was in the moment, but there was some shade as he won Best Director, and the cameras went to Quentin Tarantino, who just did not look pleased at all, and the crowd seemed to make something of that, and Tarantino's not winning Best Director in all these award shows. So for whatever that's worth,
give it to Taika. I'm just kidding. That's
I would be so down for that. Apparently he directed that movie in the Hitler costume. Like
jumping behind the camera and just like looking in.
if someone ever did a bad take, he's like 99999.
That's great.
So did you guys see Gretel and Hansel?
Oh yeah, I did.
I don't know.
We'll
go on.
I know it's early. I know we're 33 days into the new year, but I'm gonna say it now. This is gonna be one of my top 10 movies of the year.
Wow.
Okay, maybe not. Okay, so like maybe top 15 or something. There's a lot. A lot of good movies can come out between now and then, but this is a contender. Like I don't think it's gonna get any award attention or anything like that, but it's this year's The Vitch. It's this year's It Comes at Night. Like I'm not saying it's like those movies, but like it's that kind of niche horror that's gonna kind of stick with you, and you don't really forget it. There's too much striking, interesting stuff going on. It haunts you. And the story is the story of Hansel and Gretel. Told in a very dark, ominous, foreboding sense. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Dark Souls video game series, but there was something about this movie that just reminded me of that, about how that game is like, it always makes you feel like you turn a corner and you're going to die. You talk to this person, they're going to do something horrible to you, and you're going to end up hating life. Just everything just feels like it's designed about the world to eat you alive and just make life just a miserable experience. But it's also a kind of cute story in a weird way in some scenes, because the little boy playing Hansel's really good, and the girl playing Gretel is from what's her name from It, so she's amazing.
Yep, Beverly from the Levy, man. That's right, Beverly.
So good. I can't wait to see what her career is going to be. And my favorite actor of the whole thing was the witch in this, because Hansel and Gretel, she goes in the cottage.
You know who she was, right?
Yeah. Do you know? I mean, the Borg Queen. Is that where you're going with this?
Exactly, sir.
Not just the Borg Queen, but she was also the crazy lady in Silent Hill 1, the movie.
Which they just announced they're working on a third one of those with the original director, which is kind of interesting.
Wow. I'd be super down. That movie is underrated, I feel. So cool. That makes me happy. But yeah. So the cast was great. The use of color in this movie, like oranges on greens and browns and like red against black. Like there's just like the image for the thumbnail for this episode is just the shot of a woman with red light behind her, and it's amazing.
Oh, it's the one where we get the silhouette where she like looks, and you see it in the distance in the woods when Gretel is out there looking for her brother after he goes missing. And damn it, from a visual standpoint, from a sonic standpoint especially, I thought the score was terrific. It just, I don't know, Cecil hated it. It was too slow burn and not enough going on for him, sort of thing. But I thought it was moody. It was brooding. It was definitely creepy. And I liked the fact that it took a different twist with just Gretel almost being kind of tempted by the witchiness of this weird woman. And I like the backstory too. I mean, the stuff that front loads it, that we do get some payoff in the back end with. And as far as PG-13 goes, talk about pushing the boundaries in my estimation with certain things. I was just like, this is PG-13, right? Oh yeah, it's seemingly somehow PG-13, but you see body parts. It's not excessively gratuitous, but it went for it much more than I was anticipating. And Osgood Perkins, man, I mean, I didn't see his second film, the I Am the Pretty Thing That Lives in the House. It's a Netflix film, but I loved The Blackcoat's Daughter, originally titled February. I mean, he has the lockdown on just this sort of ambient, creepy, just ominous horror. And I've seen a lot of people hate on this film. I know Cody didn't like it. I know Cecil didn't like it. I watched a lot of reviews about this one after seeing it myself, because I'm always curious to see those differing perspectives.
Sure.
So.
It's telling the story in a very weird way. So I get it if it's not really doing it for you. There are moments where I'm like, this is an interesting way to approach this. I don't think everyone's going to be down for this. And reading the reviews is at like a 58% on Rotten Tomatoes or something like that. So the people that are loving it are loving it, and the people that aren't are kind of, it feels divisive. But honestly, that kind of makes me like it a little bit more. Like 30 seconds into this movie, and I'm like, I want to see where this is going. I'm hooked. It's just like the way, like especially because like it starts in like a classic letterbox,
Mm-hmm.
and then when doing that, because it's giving like the opening exposition of like the backstory on the fact that this is about dark stories and stuff like that. And there is one in particular Grimm fairy tale that's kind of a reoccurring motive throughout the movie, and it's telling that story. But then once it's done with that, it goes from the letterbox to the widescreen. And it's just the moment when that kind of happens. I don't know. There's a right and a wrong way to play with aspect ratios. Like the right way to do it is in Galaxy Quest, when the only time it opens up to the widescreen is when you're seeing the big full galaxy and you realize that all this is real. And in this movie, you're going from the fairy tale into the real world. It's just there's just too many clever little things for me to not love it. I love it. and the music, like you said, was very good.
Did you say why is it switched? Why is it? Gretel and Hansel.
It's her story.
Oh,
yeah. I mean, it's. Oh, you used to look at your voice. Say something before you go. What's up?
Oh, I wish I could. I mean, the signal is cutting in and out a little bit, regrettably, because my cock center. I heard half of what you said, and the last bit that I got was like the whole loving it aspect, or at least borderline love. I just. I mean, the way Osgood directs these films, man, and that like all of them, but this one specifically, of the three that he's done, that just the way he framed up some of these shots with his DP cinematographer, whatever you want to classify them as, and I mean, just the symmetry of just everything from like logs, like just shelved on the side of two different homes, and it just all seemed just very well placed and presented, to when there's a descent down these stairs to the lower level of this home where this witch resides. I mean, everything just had such a distinctive like order to it and was just so beautifully framed up. And I mean, this is a guy that I can't wait to see what he does, as time goes on, and there's maybe a story to tell that hits more of a bigger, I guess, audience level, because I feel like he has the prowess and the skills to be deserving of a little more acclaim. So,
yeah. And I just remember now something I'd forgotten about. I loved how sharp the movie was, how angular it was. Like all the buildings had a very like a half steeple thing going on. This like carriage cart has a similar thing, so there's like an edge to it, and the kids like trying to cut down trees with an axe blade, and there's like a really early, just very striking axe throwing into something, and the movie's sharpening an axe blade. The movie, it's very visually, it's doing a lot of interesting things, and
like Marriage Story.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Well, I'm. Did you notice that a lot of the shots, the rooms were to a point in Marriage Story?
Yeah, the lines on to kind of like draw your attention to like this or that. It was very interesting. The way that some YouTubers they get back in the corner, so the walls and all the stuff around them draws your attention perfectly onto you.
Yes, a lot of YouTubers. Yes.
There's no name to stick a man in there with a name or anything like that. Like,
well, I'll throw some names out: Stuckman, Drum Dums, like all these different people, man. I mean, come on now.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how well this movie is remembered.
So I checked.
Anyway, go ahead, yeah.
In recent history, the earliest release to get an Oscar nomination was Get Out, which was released in February.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So
I don't think it's going to get nominated.
Well, I you said it, and I was just intrigued to see. That was 2017. February 24th of 2017 was its release date.
But that's funny. That means nothing from January has ever been nominated for an Oscar.
No, I only checked recent past. Okay.
It's
probably, there's got to be at least one out there.
Right. One that had cool special effects or
especially. Well, yeah, I was looking the major ones. Film, director, screenplay, stuff like that. So yeah, I'm assuming special effects is out there. Jupiter Ascending or some shit.
Well, that came out in March, I think. Yeah, that came out in March.
Yeah. Yeah, see, so it becomes harder. That's
the only reason I know that came out with March is because I reviewed it in a lump with 50 Shades of Grey and Kingsman, and those were all March movies.
No, it was 50 Shades was Valentine's Day.
It was.
Oh, you're right. Oh, no, it was
all that.
You're absolutely right.
I unfortunately remember because I was dragged to it by said girlfriend at the time.
Likewise.
Oof. Glad that relationship didn't work out.
Likewise. Did you guys see anything else this past weekend?
I finished The Witcher to stay on the theme of fairy tale stuff.
Did you want to toss a coin, and were you down with it?
I'm gonna toss so many coins to that song. Like I have like 2 different versions of it. I'm like switching between listening to. It's a dang good song. I love the bard and the character Jaskier every time he was on screen. Like his bromance with Geralt or Geralt or however you pronounce it was awesome. I loved Yennefer. The actress playing her is gorgeous, and I thought she did a very, very good job. I just don't like the way the story's told. And it's very alienating and very hard for me to get into it. And I understand like the books are also written in that kind of non-linear timelines kind of crisscrossing. And that's interesting, but it didn't hook me. It kind of made me go, oh, you're just doing a thing and you're going to make me wait forever to learn why. Okay.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you won't like it though. I'm a grumble puss on this. I admit it.
No, it's been one of the biggest gripes from most people I've talked to who didn't absolutely adore it. They've been like, yeah, the fact that it jumps around with the timelines, it's confusing. And I've had to like consult different, sources just to make sure I know exactly what's going on. Even if I think I do, I'm not 100% and so on and so forth. I still haven't watched a single episode. It was all lock and key reading over the course of the last like week or so between like 2+ weeks at this point between Cecil and I, just prepping for that Netflix show this upcoming week. So yeah,
what about this there, Fuego? Fuego, you getting down with this or what?
I actually can't even see you on Streamlabs right now, so really? I'm not sure what you're showing. Yeah, I can't see either of you guys, unfortunately.
So. I am showing you Dr. Sleep, the director's cut.
You showed it, right before we went live, and I'm purchasing it tomorrow. Cecil and I will be reviewing it on Thursday when we meet up for all of our lock and key coverage, just to round all of that out. I'm stoked. It's adding about 30 minutes, and I thought the original Flanagan film was fantastic, and in some ways better than the book. In some ways, and so yeah, I cannot wait, man. So
is it possible for it to be a letdown? I mean, it's 30 minutes, but what if it's
I don't know how it could let me down. I mean, it might slow the flow of the film a little bit, because as much as I love Aliens and it's maybe my favorite movie of all time, I will admit that while I enjoy the supplemental stuff of like, Hudson talking about, we got knives, we got guns, we got sharp sticks, all this different stuff, and then putting up the turret guns and some of the additional things that stuff with Newt before the colony is destroyed. All that stuff is great. It does mess with the flow a little bit of the film, and it's not as tight and just kind of go in that regard. But I mean, if you're that much of a fan of the original, I don't necessarily see how adding new scenes in could be particularly disappointing for somebody who already loves the original. You're just it's like just getting the director's cut of a film, an ultimate cut. I don't know. I mean, I still might like the flow of the first cut of it better, but I mean, more scenes, new score, effects, all this stuff. The fact that they gave Flanagan, despite the fact that the film didn't perform the way they had hoped, all of this opportunity to make something bigger and more grandiose, and it has chapter breaks from what I was reading, so it's going to feel more like a visual novel.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm pumped. I am really, really pumped. So
what was the budget on Dr. Sleep?
That's a good question. I want to say around 60, but I could be wrong.
45, actually. Wow.
45?
Well, 45 to 55 is the estimated, so it could have been about 60. Yeah.
Okay.
Worldwide are brought in. That's unfortunate.
Yeah, it's a big time bummer, especially with how great the performances were. Rebecca Ferguson, Ewan McGregor. I thought it was a great film, man.
Yeah. It's hopefully this will rejuvenate something.
Now you had the 4K there, right?
Yep. Is there a difference? Oh.
I think we're
okay. Yeah, it was cutting out for a split sec there, unfortunately.
Yeah, it is the 4K. Is there a difference?
Well, no. I was just curious if the 4K had the director's cut or not, because I was trying to remember if that was only on the Blu-ray version of it, or
it says director's cut on Blu-ray. So the 4K is not the director's cut.
Mm-hmm.
Such a jerk move.
Yeah, kind of lame. Yeah. But you know what I did see this weekend, guys? I was a week late, unfortunately, but I saw The Gentleman. The new Guy Ritchie. And that film was ridiculously badass and so very fun. And I even took Catherine to it, and she doesn't typically like, like she was like, yeah, Snatch was okay. That's where, Brad Pitt was like talking about the Durgs or whatever the hell is in his crazy gypsy vernacular and whatnot. But yeah, she's not necessarily into these sort of crime capered silliness, whatever. But I mean, if even a casual attendee, like her, walked out with like ear to ear grin and just loving the hell out of it, it's on level, dare I say, with Snatch for me as my favorite thing Guy Ritchie has ever done.
Wow.
Best thing I've ever seen Charlie Hunnam in. I've thought he's okay in things here and there, but in this movie, man, he has such a calm, composed coolness in this film. And I just put up my review on Infuegotainment of it today, but also Hugh Grant is fantastic, doing a completely different type of British accent. And his little, he's hitting on Charlie Hunnam the entire time, and it's so funny. And I mean, Colin Farrell actually getting to do an Irish accent for the first time, and it's definitely
in a while.
And it's very just moves a million miles a minute. Yeah. And there were times where I was like, okay, do I have everything straight that's going on here? Because it's just that go go go, but stylistic as fuck, and also very very meta too, because I almost don't want to spoil the framing device, because you basically have Hugh Grant's character sitting down with Charlie Hunnam's character, and he's been spying on Hunnam's boss, which is Matthew McConaughey, this big weed growing mogul in the UK, and he's trying to blackmail them. But the way he's telling the story might not necessarily be how it's actually gone down. So it's got a very interesting essence of, okay, what's real and what's not. And even something you see at the beginning of the film is, did it really happen that way? There's a lot of plot twists, a lot of bait and switch. And there's some that you see, twist-wise a mile away. And there's others where you think you know what's happening. And then you're just like, oh, okay, I didn't expect that to go down. So it's funny, it's violent. It balances the hilarity and the brutality really magnificently, and that's what I said on my review too, and I had to come back to it here. So it's just a fun film, and it's my favorite movie of 2020 so far.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, even above Color or Out of Space. So
cool.
Yeah.
But we're only a month in, so I mean,
exactly.
how much is that saying?
Like, I'm over here saying, no, best movie of the year, Gretel and Hansel. You're over here, best movie of the year, The Gentleman. We'll see how it comes in December, sir.
Yeah, exactly. Just let your load out right away, as opposed to trying to work your way through the rest of the year and everything else. But yeah, no,
I love that you brought up Hugh Grant though in The Gentleman, because it took me so long while watching the movies to realize that was Hugh Grant. I didn't recognize him. Yeah, everyone in that movie really does. They're just having so much fun. Every scene just comes alive as they're all just playing off of each other. Like I love the last thing that Colin Farrell does is just like give like a little hand signal to someone before he just walks off. It's so subtle, but you get it.
Yeah, and they're like fake music videos that they were making, right. And those weird fight videos, and also like the whole confrontation in the drug addict's flat, and everything that transpires afterwards, and the weird music they were playing during this chase. It's like chanting children and weird horns. It was like so British to me. I just couldn't even fathom the weirdness, but I loved it nonetheless.
that scene where they're in the flat, that's the one that made me realize, like, oh, Charlie Hunnam's owning the hell out of this.
Damn movie. Good. So much use of the C word though.
Yay, totally British.
Everyone's a cunt.
Well,
yeah, no, it's insanely how did you have trouble in the beginning with like the cockiness? Did you catch on right away, or did you have to kind of get used to it?
It depends what you mean by cockiness, because Hugh Grant is very about some cockiness right off the bat, although maybe not of the variety that people might think.
Well, Snatch is hard to follow if you just get dropped right in. I admit I had to put the subtitles on for that, and
it took me 2 tries to get through Snatch, but I love that movie so much. Like that scene where he's just sitting in the bar with the gun, just drinking the beer at the end. Oh, so good.
No.
It's frustrating watching something like that with Emily, and she's just following in the whole thing, and I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Can you tell me what's going on, please? Because I don't understand any of these words. So the big release of the weekend is Birds of Prey.
Cannot wait. I probably shouldn't be excited, but I am.
See these next 2 weeks are a couple of cannot wait, but I'm guarded because Sonic comes out the week after, and apparently people have seen that and they're a little happy.
Wait, Sonic is getting a Valentine's Day release? I knew it was coming out this month, but
Yep.
Isn't that so weird? Talk about counter programming, man. I mean,
yeah. But what's the Is it going to be like a bromance between Sonic and
Cyclops? Yeah, James Marsden. Although I prefer disturbing behavior, but I mean,
yeah.
love that movie.
Blumhouse's Fantasy Island. What About Love? The Photograph. And
Look at
Sonic.
this photograph.
What a weird looking Valentine's.
It's in the photograph of love.
It's a very musical episode. I'm digging it.
But Birds of Prey, which has come out as R, it's going to be an R-rated release, and
Hell yeah. Okay.
And it's most definitely going to finally unseat Bad Boys for Life after these numerous
absolutely
dominance at this point. It's finally going to get knocked off its perch. That's me trying to be funny.
I love how the movie that's going to knock it out too is a movie that's a pseudo sequel to a Will Smith movie.
Oh wow!
No.
Yeah.
I wonder if Deadshot's going to make a cameo. That'd be insane. Will Smith knocks out Will Smith.
So a weird thing on the homepage of Box Office Mojo, Bad Boys for Life on a 17-day total is outperforming John Wick 3 in 17 days by about $23 million. So
damn,
Bad Boys for Life was no joke.
Despite having lots of them throughout. Yeah, it definitely it owned the box office. No, no ands, ifs, or buts about it. So
yeah, who would have thought? I wonder if that's a surprise for them or if they knew going.
Oh, absolutely it is. I mean,
you think so?
How quickly they decided to make a fourth one just based on the opening weekend.
The dump it in January without Michael Bay returning. He just cameos at the wedding. Which I thought was incredibly hilarious. They probably didn't have much faith at all in this movie. It had half, a quarter, or like a third of the budget of Bad Boys 2. So they are happy as pigs in shit right now, I would imagine. So,
which I finally saw Six Underground, which is the Michael Bay Netflix movie, and wow.
Was it only 6 Underground? Was there ever a 7th? I haven't seen the movie, so I don't know.
No, it's
I haven't watched it either. Yeah. It's with Mr. Blake Lively, right?
Yes, it is Mr. Blake Lively. It's Michael Bay. It's very, very Michael Bay. That's the only way to put it. Lots of pretty people in really fast cars and explosions, and Michael Bay apparently thinks he's still making beer commercials or something because
he's always making beer commercials. See Transformers the last night.
I was gonna say that's with the Bud Light, right?
Oh no, sorry, that wasn't last night. That was the one before.
The one before.
Yeah.
13 hours was reserved and pretty good. I actually liked 13 Hours, which was with Michael Bay and Jim from The Office.
Yeah, there's too many people from The Office in that movie, though. It was very distracting.
Are there? Wait, who else is from The Office in that movie?
Pam's boyfriend fiance from the first 2 seasons.
Are you serious? He's in that movie?
Is he really?
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
He's just another soldier dude, and the
Oh,
CIA guy who's like the dick who's saying no, you can't do this because blah 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 blah. He was on a flashback episode as a guy from corporate assessing. So there was a lot of people from The Office in that movie.
All right, well, you got Jim to reach out and get some of his buddies.
That's what I was gonna say. It's like, yo, man, I'm in this new movie, and we need some like little bit parts. You down?
It's about Benghazi. Just go with me for a minute.
So, as far as Birds of Prey, are you guys? You're excited? Are you at all cautious? What?
I mean, it's a DC movie, so these days you always kind of have to at least like temper your expectations like a smidge. Like, because I mean, there have been good ones. I love Shazam. I love Wonder Woman. I like Justice League. It's not good, but I do like it. It's a fun, enjoyable experience to sit through because it's such a hot mess.
Dude, I hate that movie.
Yeah. I mean, don't worry. It's a fun hate watch.
Yeah.
So the last few have been fun in odd ways, but it's still DC. So still,
Yeah.
I don't know. Just it's a side sequel to Suicide Squad, one of the worst movies of the 20th century.
I think she's hamming it up. I think she's chewing the scene. Like in what I've seen of the trailers, it just feels like too much. Like she turned the volume up a little too much on the.
It's possible.
Harley Quinn. Like, all right, we get it. Why are you going so hard into this accent? What?
I'm honestly really over the Harley character, man. Like Cecil was showing me some of the from this new animated show that they have on DC Universe, and it was like hitting my head against a wall. I couldn't stand it. It's so over the top, so silly, so inane, so stupid. Really, if there's any better way of putting it, there's like donuts for sophistication, and not that I need that in my comic book stuff necessarily. It's not like everything can be, I don't know, Watchmen or Akira or something of that nature. But nonetheless, I mean, yeah, I'm more intrigued about seeing what Mary Elizabeth Winstead brings to the table, some of the other supporting players, and how they go about what is her name? To Rosie Perez, like what she brings to it. I'm really curious about this cast, and also Ewan McGregor playing Black Mask, this villain that I'm not very familiar with because I'm not deep into the comics like Cecil or like a few other friends of mine. But if I was to be honest, here at the beginning of the year, I'm more interested in the DC slate than the Marvel slate. I'm not very interested in Black Widow. I'm not super stoked about Eternals, although it could be the next Guardians. Who knows? But I mean, between this and Wonder Woman, I'm much more intrigued. But Margot and just the character as a whole, even stretching back to the animated series, like Harley Quinn was never a character I really liked very much anyway. So, but she's popular. People love the hell out of her. So
when I was a kid, I liked her. Oh, sorry. Yeah, it's gonna melt the box office, but I do agree that she's a weird character. Like when I was a kid, I liked her in the show, but it like completely took me by surprise when later in life everyone was like, "Oh, Harley Quinn from the animated is like the best character." I'm like, really? She's fun. I thought it was a cool thing when I learned that that show invented her. I thought that was cool. I don't know. She's interesting, but she's like the Boba Fett of the DC stuff. I don't really get why she's blown up how she has, but she's fun.
That's an unfair comparison, sir. I completely disagree.
Okay, fair enough. Well, I mean, I think since
politely though, obviously.
Yeah, of course. No, stop yours, Fuego. You can take your Boba Fett and you can just Boba Fett off. Whatever that means. But I think it's just going to be. I think DC movies lately work better when they get weird with it and they're willing to try something, and they seem to be doing that here. So for better or for worse, I'm interested.
Well, in our second straight R-rated DC film, so there you go.
Wait, what was the other one?
Well, Joker, obviously.
Oh, right.
Right, that's DC.
Yeah, speaking of a DC movie that tried something, it worked out for them there. I don't see Birds of Prey getting up for Best Picture.
That's what you think.
I am kind of excited for Wonder Woman 84, though.
Are you?
It's so delightfully 80s. Like, it could just be dumb. Like, I hate that they're bringing back Chris Pine because I hate when you ever bring back a character who's dead. That's one thing I kind of respect about Black Widow. She seems like, and Tony Stark, they seem like they're actually dead. They seem like they're
except for the fact that we get a brand new Black Widow movie this year,
which is one of the reasons why I'm not super stoked on that movie. But obviously, I'll still see it just because. But I'm not super excited for it. But I just
well, and there's all the speculation, right, that we might see a Tony Stark cameo or we might see a Cap cameo or somebody else because this is before Infinity War and all that stuff. So, technically we could see one of those characters just pop up. And I'm not betting on it, but. Yeah.
Sorry. I was just. When is it set? Do we know? Like, is it like right before Infinity War? Is it in between Infinity War and?
I know it's post Civil War, if I'm not mistaken. But then again, it looks like she has different hairstyles and colors and all this different stuff at various portions. So I'm assuming it's going to be jumping around between different time periods amongst all of those previous Avengers films. So, yeah.
I wonder how they're going to justify how those other characters weren't in Infinity War or Endgame. Did they all get snapped away and not come back? Or?
I was going to say, where they get killed. Yeah.
Oh my God, is Disney making a Suicide Squad movie?
That'd be awesome.
I'd be down. I mean, I guess they made Rogue One. That was technically.
I was just about to say that. Yeah.
Sorry, buddy. But actually,
Rogue One was at least better than Suicide Squad, right, Lindsay?
Yes. You don't need to worry about that, dude. I'm hard on Rogue One because the parts of Rogue One that are good, and like there's like 2 good things in Suicide Squad, but there's like a half dozen to a dozen things in Rogue One.
The whole third act in Rogue One's awesome.
Yeah, but whenever I watch it, all I can think about is the trailer footage that seemed so cool that I was still seeing in trailers after the movie came out, and I wanted to see that version of the movie instead of the version that we got.
Them running on the beach, like when was that? What?
Yeah, no joke. I saw a 30-second ad for Rogue One 2 weeks after it came out, and not a shot in the trailer wasn't like it was just a TV spot. It was just 30 seconds, but still, like
I can't say I'm surprised.
Should I take this moment to turn it into the Star Wars portion of the show?
Star Wars.
Nothing but Star Wars. Although sometimes I do Groundhog Day ads during the Super Bowl, and that was pretty awesome.
I did enjoy that, yeah. And I feel like it was playing on a lot of TV channels yesterday too, because I kept seeing it at different people's houses, just at different moments in the movie.
Yeah, and I didn't even watch the Super Bowl, but yet I saw that commercial on Twitter, and I was just like, Murray, I love you, man.
So I have images from the abandoned artwork for
Underworld, right?
Ooh, okay, so that's how we do this. Okay, I'm learning as we go.
So this is abandoned artwork from Trevorrow's Duel of the Fates, and the first picture here is it's Rey with a double-ended lightsaber, and looks like she's went to town on a number of stormtroopers.
Is that blood in the bottom right corner there? Do you guys see that?
Could be.
Maybe.
It's a little dark there, Trevorrow, but okay.
You want to talk about dark?
Yeah, I was going to say dark. I mean, how about that
Look at this
guillotine lightsabery thing they got going on there? Like, shizza.
The funny thing is, it looks like it's Captain Phasma there. If I were to guess, that's the Executioner or whatever, and fucking laser guillotine. That's pretty hardcore.
Yeah.
It's pretty metal.
Yeah.
Metal.
And here is Rey and Luke training on Korolev.
Coruscant.
Sure.
Koramote.
Apple Core. See this one right here. The crew flies to Bonadan, where Poe lived with his grandfather. This to me looks a lot like what we got from Zori Bliss. That looks like where she was from.
That's fascism. City, yeah.
Felicity, exactly.
So that's cool. So I guess that was so. I wonder if that sequence was in the other version of the movie.
Yeah, they might have just adopted that and said, "All right, well, we'll make it this."
Well, they still got screenwriting credit. It was like story by Colin Trevorrow and his co-writer, and then screenplay was by the other people who took over, JJ and whoever his partner was. But
that's interesting.
Poe and Rey pilot a razor sail through Bonadan waters, chased by the Knights of Ren and Knife 9. That kind of looks similar to what she was riding in the water in Rise.
And that sequence ended with them interacting with the Knights of Ren. Yeah. I wonder if that desert planet was added entirely in post Trevorrow world or something like that.
Probably. Yeah.
Then there's this dude.
I don't know who he is, but I love him.
Tor Valum.
Yeah, so Tor Valum was this guy that basically in the script, which I still haven't read, but I've watched so many videos about it at this point from people who have. So Kylo goes to train with this like super ancient, not even Sith, but it was like somebody who at one point trained. It was somebody who trained Palpatine, if I'm not mistaken, because Plagueis isn't in any of that stuff at this particular point, at least is like in depthly. And this is some weird sort of alien who has Kylo go, and well, it's an image that CP is going to show here in a moment, because there is a battle with Kylo and none other than Darth Vader, a la Empire Strikes Back, where Luke is fighting Darth in the cave. So Kylo is going to fight Darth Vader in a similar sequence callback sort of thing, and that was all from Tor Valum's training and trying to get him to face himself and various aspects of the past he holds and lineage in such high regard. So,
That's awesome.
Yeah, the more I read about this movie, the more I look at these images, it really makes me mad. Yeah, it's Legends, right, guys? It's Legend, sure.
It is worth saying that concept art doesn't it's not 1-to-1 with the movie,
right?
But God, does this movie look so much more interesting than Rise of Skywalker?
And I like going back to Coruscant a hell of a lot, just being back there and bringing the entire 9 films full circle and showing this First Order occupied, I mean, all that we had seen before was how dingy and nasty the lower levels of Coruscant were, but in this, current incarnation, it's all just spread upward, and most of Coruscant is, just dilapidated and messed up. And that's a very Independence Day kind of shot, though, I have to say.
It does look like Independence Day. That's right.
Yeah, the ship just sitting over the sky like that.
Interesting.
Rose, Finn, 3PO, R2 attempt to activate the beacon on Coruscant to broadcast Leia's hologram to the galaxy.
Well, this is clearly fan art because Rose Tico doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
Last Jedi. So, I mean, this clearly couldn't have been in the movie. So,
well, Rose was a huge part of this script from what everybody who has read it has said. And so all of the apologists for Last Jedi who thought her character was great and stuff, I was kind of ho-hum on her. I felt like it was more so what her and Finn were sent to do that wasn't compelling in comparison with their dynamic, more or less. But yeah, she was supposed to be a huge part of this third and final film in the trilogy. So
yeah, I thought she was a mixed bag too, but like a lot of her stuff could have been paid off and worth it if in the end, if like she and Poe were like dating or whatever you call it in the third movie, like because that was so clearly kind of what they wanted to be doing. But whatever, what do I know? Finn's just gonna be hung up on Rey forever. No, it's cool.
R2 and 3PO in the streets of Coruscant, very reminiscent of opening shot of Episode 4.
Yeah, this is like this. I've seen this one before. This one gives me like a Blade Runner meets Episode 4. You know what I mean? Like, it's just beautiful. Hey, Finn doing the thing Finn does best.
Screaming.
Yeah. Well, what do we think he's saying? Is it Rey? It's Rey, right?
That's him screaming Rey.
If I'm going to be completely honest, he's yelling at everybody, "You have to fight!" kind of thing.
Probably. Oh, hello there.
Rey's face is a monster outside the forest of Mortis.
Yeah, fight
Brigham Mortis.
Fight dope big creatures. This has some big time Jedi against the Rancor type vibes, from Luke. So once again, another dope callback.
And also, she has the double bladed lightsaber. Like, I just of all the things to not pay off. How do you? Anyway, okay. So.
And she's also dressed in the black pseudo Luke suit, kind of like what he was rocking in Jedi 2. And I mean, people can just criticize goodness, 7 Force Awakens as much as they want, but for all of its callbacks and its similarities and stuff like that. But a lot of those moments did feel fun. It's some of the same reasons why I liked Jurassic World so much, and I feel like from the concept art, they were going for that sort of thing here too. Whereas very decisively, Rian Johnson wanted to do something with no callbacks that was completely different. And this almost feels like Colin was trying to follow in the footsteps of what JJ did with 7 and have new sequences that were these little nods back, as opposed to the 2 the second in the new trilogy being its very own thing.
I agree.
But,
Underground Coruscant, citizens paint and prepare old walkers.
That's pretty cool, especially because then like that would have tied in with the Mandalorian. That one episode where those random assholes just had one of those walkers, it's around and they're available because it's post-war and they're just sitting around like the same way that people just have AKs from World War II just sitting in their closet and they still work.
Defected stormtroopers in Coruscant, citizens cheer around old painted first order walkers.
That's a mouthful. You got it though.
Yeah.
Which I thought was cool, and the fact that wouldn't it make sense? And I know we got the payoff of it to a degree in Rise of Skywalker with the fact that there were other defected troopers and whatnot. But I mean, the fact that that was obviously in Colin's script as well, and JJ retrofitted it on a smaller scale, but on a big scale like this, with their know-how of how to operate a lot of these machines and stuff, I would imagine could have really played a big part in just going against the First Order on Coruscant, and even talking about it, I mean, it's a lot of fun, but it's very bittersweet.
It's still weird being like waxing lyrically for a Colin Trevorrow movie that never happened of all the directors.
Okay, to be fair, I contend he's only made one bad movie, and I love, as I talk about all the time, Safety Not Guaranteed. I adore that film. I think it's fantastic. Yeah, sits on my shelf. I actually bought it, so I liked it that much.
I've watched it a couple times. It is a lot. Stormtroopers prepared battle against Coruscant citizens. Yeah. Oh man, there could have been like a big Civil War type thing going on. That would have been so much more interesting than just Star Destroyers with Death Star cannons.
How about just
fighting somewhere in the outer regions or whatever.
R2 taking a fatal hit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you got
they replaced that with C-3PO's fake out death. That didn't even matter because then he got his memories. God damn it, JJ!
Fake out death after fake out death. Sorry, he's not dead. But yes, Leia is dead, and you're just like, oh, that's good because it's for real. So
then this fucking winner right here.
Yeah, that's such a money shot right there.
Luke grabs onto the actual lightsabery part of the lightsaber. That. Just awesome.
Just like the color there, you can still see the blue around
his body.
Yeah, I mean that. Just can you imagine the silence in the theater after that had happened?
He was also supposed to have a significantly big part in this, from training Rey to I mean, this bit in and of itself, and then him, Yoda, and also Obi-Wan were all going to be part of this big climax. And man, it would have been sick.
And I think there's one more.
Yeah. What the what?
Yeah. Now that is awesome, right? So
okay, yeah, that makes
yeah. Hux basically he just commits suicide when he realizes that the First Order is being overtaken, and the tide is turned and stuff, and so he does ritualistic, just falling on his sword sort of thing. And you also find out. And you also find out in the script that he was obsessed with lightsabers and with Sith Jedi culture and stuff like that, both of them corresponding in their own regard. And so he had a collection of lightsabers of different varieties and colors. And I mean, a little bit more interesting, I think, than what transpired with him. But it still was an interesting turn, I guess, with him being the defector and everything. But just to get rid of him as quickly as they did. I know it was for comedic value, but it just it was kind of a disservice to the character in some regards. So, and I mean, Domhnall's a great actor. So,
he so is, and I love how Force Awakens came out the same year. He was in 8 of the best movies of the year.
Was that Ex Machina that same year?
Ex Machina, and with Oscar Isaac, no less, in that movie. And Alex Garland, god damn, is that such a terrific movie. And people don't talk about Annihilation enough either. And obviously that wasn't with Domhnall, but Garland is a force to be reckoned with, I contend.
Quick segue, have you heard about Oscar Isaac's the movie he's producing?
No.
Maybe not the one he's producing. I know he just signed on to be in some new sci-fi, thrillery, borderline horror sort of thing with a director he's worked with previously. But
do you know what it's called?
Ooh, I can't remember. I know it's based on a previous. Oh, yes, it's the Brian K. Vaughan. It's the Brian K. Vaughan, right? And it was actually called Ex Machina, and now they're gonna have to give it a different title and stuff.
Yeah, he's gonna just lay claim to all the Ex Machinas in Hollywood,
as he should. What the hell?
Oh.
And more callbacks, man. Great stuff here.
Yeah, except she's using BB-8 to distribute a message.
I hope in the actual movie, if they had shot it, in this alternate timeline, she wasn't wearing the exact outfit like she is in this. But, for concept art, it works. That's a beautiful moment.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it.
Yeah.
Hey, look at us! We're in a thing now.
Yay!
Oh, widescreen! I
Fun
can
stuff.
actually I have room to move around. It's I wonder if we're gonna get a documentary in a few years, like Trevorrow's Star Wars or something like that.
So like along the lines of Jodorowsky's Dune sort of thing.
Mm.
Yeah, CP and I were talking about that earlier.
Man, and I'm stoked for the new Dune. I mean, because Denis is one of my favorite working directors today. But just that film, man, with H.R. Giger. I hear different pronunciations. Tomato. I think it is not. But I mean, plus Pink Floyd working on the soundtrack. I mean, they had they had so many amazing pieces in place for that film in the 70s when it was initially being worked on, and for the whole project to crumble in the manner in which that it did. And I still do not remember the Lynch film very well. I was at this local spot here in Phoenix called Zia Records that has like the half dozen locations, and they do new and used sales of CDs, vinyl, movies, all kinds of different pop culture collectibles and stuff. And I was looking at this extended cut of David Lynch's Dune, and I've never seen an extended cut of that. And I was curious about forking down the $15 or whatever the hell it was just to pick that up and check it out, because I do not remember the one very well with Kyle MacLachlan and Patrick Stewart and all those other people. I vaguely remember it, but
I can't remember which one. I've never seen it in its entirety. I've seen like the one with the dude who's like floating and fat, and he like rips a thing out of a guy and like blood flies everywhere. When I was watching the movie and it got to that scene, I'm like, I think I'm done.
I think I saw it when I was way too young to understand what the hell's going on.
I was in the exact same. I think I was like 10 or 11 when I watched whatever version that was that I was talking about. So same thing.
What do we got for news?
Actually, there's something I've been wanting to talk about because we've talked about it a few times here. Amber Heard, Johnny Depp news.
Yeah, the audio tape leaking, right? Of her just berating him and talking mad smack and all that stuff, and it's heavy, man.
It's pretty dark.
What happened?
So there's just an audio released of a fight between the two of them, and it just does not paint Amber Heard in a particularly good light or support the argument that she was the abusive one in the relationship.
She was abused.
No, that it makes it look like she was the one abusing him.
Right.
I still think they're both crazy and drinking tens of thousands of dollars worth of wine every month and getting their lines fed to them through earpieces in Pirates of the Caribbean 6 or 5 or whatever the last one was. So
it's a two-way street, man. That's what I'll contend. But for everybody to demonize him the way that they did, only to realize, she's kind of a psycho bitch too. So, I still feel like there's another shoe to fall in this. I don't know what it is. I got this weird feeling we still don't know the full story, or maybe that's just like me these days. I'm all about like, it's never what this side said happened or what this side said happens. It's something in the middle. So I'm fascinated by what that middle is, but it does not seem it. This audio definitely does not make Amber Heard seem like a good person. Well, it's kind of like Marriage Story. So Ray Liotta, so Ray Liotta just leaked this audio to the internet in defense of Adam Driver's character played by Johnny Depp. And in that regard, now they're just, batting back and forth. And Laura Dern at this point is trying to figure out how she is going to respond in defense. And she's combing through all kinds of, audio conversations that have been, I don't know. I'm just thinking off the top of my head, obviously, but
no, I love the metaphor. It's very good.
Yeah. It's like kind of the vibe that I'm getting here. It is very much like a tabloid war between these two, and it's been going for a while at this particular point. And
that was the other thought I had. This is all 4 years. Sorry, I kind of cut you off, but 4 years ago, this is when this started. If he's had this tape for 4 years, why didn't he release this tape 4 years ago?
Because Ray Liotta was like, "No, we're not giving her that much money, man. You have so much."
Yes. Again, like, at this point, like I don't want to, especially because the dogpiling in one way, shape, or form has happened. I don't want to dogpile on any. I guess I'm just trying to avoid dogpiling on her now after dogpiling on him. I don't
dogpiling.
It's all just one big dog pile, and there's no point in trying to avoid it. But I'm trying to remain objective, I guess. I don't know.
Well, speaking of most dog piles, it all smells like shit.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, the fact that she had a problem before where she was, I think she was arrested, if I'm not mistaken, for
previous relationship. Yeah.
Right. So that should kind of be the first sign indicator right there that, well,
I mean, he got fights in the 90s. I don't know how bad the fights were, but
that was in the days of him and Downey and all those bad boy hotshot actors. And they're just doing whatever, boys with big boys, whatever.
I don't think it was like his significant others that were complaining. I think the mother of his child said that's absurd. Like there's a bunch of people that have come out and said, yeah, I don't know about that.
Yeah. And also, apparently, they really, I thought they were together for a while. Apparently, they were only married for like a year and a half.
Makes sense.
Still, though, that's like, there's so much news about such a short marriage. Like, you feel like it's going to last like at least 2 years if you're going to have this much drama.
Burn like a flame.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, I mean, the amount of attention given to affairs and stuff like that, these very, like, just, shooting stars sort of scenarios within Hollywood. I mean, think of Meg Ryan and Russell Crowe, for God's sake, and all of that, all that destroyed. So, that's just one that randomly comes to mind, obviously. But
well, I mean, there was like Brad Pitt and not Jennifer Lawrence. She's way too young for.
Says you.
Yeah, I mean, at the time when the story was breaking, she was way too young.
I don't know. She wasn't too young for Javier Bardem, so I mean, it's whatever, right?
I meant Jennifer Aniston and how they're
they did Mr. and Mrs. Smith together, and that ended their marriage essentially because he's sleeping with Jolie, and
you felt weird for Jennifer Aniston watching that movie, just like, oh no.
Yeah. They have way too much good chemistry together.
Yeah.
Hopefully he didn't take her to the premiere.
Damn you, Doug Lyman. Doug Lyman, you have destroyed so much. And I loved Go and Swingers, so what are you doing, man?
Oh, dude, yeah. I mean, Lyman is one of the most fascinating, like, peaks and valleys careers. I love it. Like,
he's like one of those directors that's eclectic to the degree of like a Linklater, where he can do such drastically different sorts of things and still execute them all fairly well. I mean, he also did that Live, Die, Repeat you guys liked so much, right? There, Edge of Tomorrow or whatever it was. So he can do something like Swingers, and then he can do something like that. Like, talk about a varied career, man. So,
and one of my favorite movies that no one saw of his was called The Wall. It came out the same year The Great Wall came out. And I think that's why no one saw it. And it's a really good breakdown of the Iraq War in the 2000s. It's like just two actors too on screen, John Cena and Kick-Ass, Aaron Taylor Johnson, and then one guy on a radio. But it's so tense and it's so well paced and shot. It's amazing. Damn,
that sounds terrific. Actually, I'm
gonna
have to make note of that. I'm doing that right now.
I can't wait. I can't wait to hear what you think. Other news than that,
I mean, the other bit of Star Wars news that I wanted to try to segue into, but we jumped to something else. You guys saw that there was that leak of test footage from years ago, the Star Wars Underworld series that they were developing for ABC, right? Did you guys watch this?
No.
Yeah, I watched it yesterday, and it kind of had some vibes of it. It was almost like a mishmash between stuff we saw in The Mandalorian, except like taking place on Coruscant instead. And it's all about the underworld on Coruscant, kind of like what you saw on a few episodes of the Clone Wars. And it never got ordered to series. It was only in the development process. And of the 9-minute footage that we get, I mean, the back half of it is like there's some green screen stuff or whatever, but just you get the idea of what George was trying to develop. And there's a lot of people speculating that this was leaked when it was, man, this series has been sitting around forever, and this footage has been sitting around forever. Why did it get leaked now? And so everybody's making the Deadpool connotations, and they're like, is this Disney Lucasfilm just kind of trying to, cast the line out there and see maybe could people still be interested in the idea of this? And then there's even further rumors that George might come back in a larger consultant role and help out and stuff. But I don't necessarily think he's going to come back and work under other people on the property he created.
He said he wants control.
He says exactly. He comes back. And that's what I'm saying. Yeah. So he's not going to come back in some sort of supportive role, consulting a tiny bit like he did in the new trilogy and on Mando. That's one thing. But I don't know. There's lots of speculation about would they revisit this idea, especially with the positive response people have had to going back to Coruscant in a live action setting. And so that's why there's this kind of brooding discussion about, okay, they toss it out now because maybe they're coming back to this idea. So yeah, I don't know. You guys need to watch it. I'll put it in the Twitter feed or whatever. But it was a CNET article that I was reading and watched the footage from that link, and yeah,
I can't believe I didn't hear that.
Lots of other shows that I watch on YouTube. So yeah, all the discussion.
Cool. No, I'm just amazed I didn't hear anything about it. It sounds huge. Did I just miss Twitter for 36 hours or something?
Yeah, I get suggested so much Star Wars bullshit, so much hot take clickbait nonsense. I'm just like, I don't need to see all this. It's what happens when you click one of those damn things. YouTube says, "What? You like this? Here, take all of them."
I guess. Yeah. No, I don't. Yeah.
Greg, you got anything on the news front? We might have a short night tonight.
Sorry.
Yeah, man. I was going to. Well, there's just not a massive amount. I mean, since we only, we got together Wednesday, so there's not tons of stuff. I mean, there was a new report from one of the producers from the original Lethal Weapon saying that he is in talks with Glover, Gibson, and Donner to do a fifth installment. And yet the funny thing is they already did a fifth installment on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. They already made Lethal Weapon 5, guys.
Yeah, that's the
but
no, I was just gonna say that's the Lethal. I do want that Lethal Weapon 5 with that cast. Go ahead.
Yeah, but this was just reported by Deadline, and they revealed Gibson, Glover, Donner were putting their heads together with the intention of making a fifth movie happen. And I'm honestly thinking this has got to be a reactionary thing to Bad Boys for Life and just the success of something like that. That's the connotation I'm making here, because this story was from the 29th, so just a couple days ago that they're reporting this happening. It's it's like, okay, they see the success of reaching way back, and bringing back one of these. Well, because I mean, hell, they're working on the 4th Beverly Hills Cop, right? They're working on. I mean, are we going to get 3 more 48 hours or something like that? I mean, I don't know. It's very much just go back to the well, man. But
the first Bad Boys was after the first 3 Lethal Weapons. There was only one Lethal Weapon after the first Bad Boys, and then Bad Boys 2 was 5 years after the last Lethal Weapon. Like, what?
Yeah, it's just studios like fishing, man. Although I must say, I loved Lethal Weapon 4. It might be my favorite in the franchise. Yeah, in some ways. I mean, granted, the first one is probably the best as far as like having the true dark tone and all that stuff. But it did get sillier as the series went on.
Yeah,
and
Joe Pesci made it a little.
Pesci was what really messed everything up a little bit. And was he? And yet I don't know. He brought that sort of balance to everything, and then Rene Russo in the third one, and so I don't know. I thought 4 was the most enjoyable of all of them as far as just the fun factor goes. It was very much like the Bayhem approach to it in a lot of ways, I guess you could say. But if there's any discussion about a 5th Lethal Weapon film, now that Gibson has he's not like fixed his reputation, but people are more accepting. He doesn't have to like beg Jodie Foster to let him be in The Beaver. when he's made a bunch of anti-Semitic comments and stuff. And I mean, he's like kind of tempered his reputation, like kind of like cleaned it up at least a little bit at this point. And so I don't know. I would be down for it. It's more so Glover, who I'm just like, really? I just saw you looking so old in that last Jumanji movie, man, and yet he had such great chemistry with Danny DeVito. It's not that I don't want to see him on screen as an actor, because I adore Danny Glover. He's awesome.
All on the wrong side of 50.
Yeah, they really are. But the fact that was a deadline story this past week, I mean, it shows that just like all the other franchises, they see. Halloween, for instance, sees that Jamie Lee coming back and all the success of that film, and then in turn Robert Englund is like, well, maybe I'd come back for one more. It's that sort of thing, where they see there's money to be made, and maybe they have some conviction as thespians and stuff, and they're just like, okay, the story, it has to be the right story, though.
Their sexual taste has nothing to do with this.
Donuts, yeah, exactly. Yeah, and okay, we talked about the BAFTAs already. I guess we could talk about Netflix laying people off, but that's not really box office related. Netflix is staring down some massive layoffs because they are trying to focus more so on their brand itself as opposed to the extent of distinctive content that they offer. So as opposed to pushing separate marketing teams behind this film and behind this series and so on, they're looking to cut down and just focus more strategically and I guess specifically on their brand itself, and how everybody's like, oh, does it stream on Netflix? Is it on Netflix? Blah, blah, that phrase you hear from everybody. They're banking on the fact that even as these new streaming services like Apple, Disney Plus, and Amazon gains more ground and gets more nominations, and Hulu, they're obviously lagging behind at this point, unfortunately. But they're trying to just focus on their brand recognition of their name, as opposed to tossing all these people out on all these separate projects and sectors. And I guess to a degree that makes sense dollar-wise, because they are spending how many billions of dollars on developing new content this year. You can't have just trying to get enough teams to work on a few blocks of that content. It's overwhelming. It has to be. So they were being criticized, just this past week for those layoffs, but I hate to say it, from a business standpoint, it kind of makes sense for them having set the standard for streaming.
I forgot where I read that their business model is unattainable. They're like chasing the dragon, so to speak, that they're always behind, but they're doing well, but they're always behind, if that makes any sense.
Oh, it totally does, because they have so many, it's like there's balls in the air, so to speak. It's like a juggling sort of situation. And despite the insane amount of money they make, they're so in debt from all the projects that they're constantly taking money from here and putting it over here, and robbing
Peter to pay Paul.
Exactly.
That's the mentality.
Yeah, that's the phrase I was looking for, and that's totally what they're doing at this point. And so, how long can that succeed? As there's other people like Disney and Apple and Amazon's, and and plus so many other players that are still awaiting, from the Peacock streaming that's going to have NBC and all of these other studios associated with it. And I saw Viacom is trying to work on one with CBS to redevelop CBS All Access into something that would also include backlog content from MTV and Comedy Central and all of these others. And so it's like, it is getting brutal out there. And I still suspect that Netflix, despite being the trailblazers, they might get lost in the shuffle to some degree and have to really alter their business model. So
is there, I don't even see a way out for them at this point. What could Netflix, honestly, the only way to really maybe they start running ads, bring in some lost revenue or something like that, but then they're going to lose a lot of people because they're the one with no ads.
And it's funny because their director, this new woman who came over from the BBC, who just took over for their now retired just main lady, I forget the exact title, but the person who was heading up the company, their previous woman retired recently, and so they brought this woman over from BBC, which is why there's all these big change is transpiring. And she very vehemently declared, no, we are not going to put ads in front of our stuff. We're not going to have like a lesser tier where people are charged, a few dollars less, and, they get to see ads, a la Hulu. So could that change?
They could do a thing like where you're on the main menu, just have a commercial play while nothing's selected yet. Just have it instead of playing the first 45 seconds of the video. Just have a commercial until the people decide what the fuck they want to see.
That's a good idea. I can see that.
Yeah, I guess this is kind of how it goes usually. Like Movie Pass, they were a thing. And then they died, and now everyone else has their own version of Movie Pass.
Yeah.
It was on top of the world. Now everyone has their own version of Netflix, and Netflix dies.
And so didn't Movie Pass officially die in the last week or so?
They filed for bankruptcy again.
Well, they filed for the type of bankruptcy that means you're done.
Because there's 11, which is restructuring, and then I think it's 13 or 14 or something like that, where you're finally you're just trying to keep your creditors away from you, and get some sort of legal protection. So
I'm not going to pretend to be an expert, but that sounds correct to me.
Oh, and also speaking of Netflix, how Adam Sandler had said that if he didn't get the Oscar nomination for Uncut Gems, he was just going to piss on everybody and go make a bunch of more crappy movies. Well, after no nomination this past week, he signed back on for 4 more movies with Netflix. So
I also saw a thing that said people have watched about 1 billion hours of
murder, hunt, mystery, whatever the hell it is.
Just Adam Sandler content in general on Netflix. Yeah. That's a lot of hours, guys.
I love Adam Sandler, or at least I did, but I mean,
to be catty about dude, does that mean DiCaprio for the years before Revenant could have went and made a bunch of shitty movies?
I would love to see the Leonardo DiCaprio version of shitty Adam Sandler. That sounds amazing. The exact same level of quality. No, I want to see the Ridiculous Six. You take Adam Sandler out, you just inject Leonardo DiCaprio in. Everything is the exact same.
It's still great. It's probably still great.
I'm honestly thinking of Inception with Adam Sandler.
That's such a great SNL skit. Adam Sandler and Leonardo DiCaprio just swap careers.
Yeah.
They get cut into each other's movies.
They could destroy it. It would be so funny. I'm just imagining DiCaprio just smashing the hell out of a golf ball and hamming it up, man. That could be insanely funny.
Okay, I think that's going to be our high point for a night here. Do you guys want to try and wrap that up here? That's just too good of an image to try and top. Any more news or anything we want to try and bring up this week?
I mean, the only other thing was we got our first synopsis of Guillermo del Toro's next film, which is called Nightmare Alley. It's based on a 1946 novel, which was written by William Lindsay Gresham, it looks like. But yeah, Bradley Cooper, Cate Blanchett. So the synopsis was very simple. It was in Nightmare Alley, an ambitious young carny, played by Bradley Cooper, with a talent for manipulating people with a few well-chosen words, hooks up with a female psychiatrist played by Cate Blanchett, who's even more dangerous than he is. The rest of the cast is rounded out by Rooney Mara, who is a carnival worker named Molly, Willem Dafoe as the show's head barker, Ron Perlman as Bruno the Strongman, Richard Jenkins, who we saw last in Guillermo's previous film, Shape of Water. He is part of the high society crowd as wealthy industrialist Ezra Grindle. This is supposed to be a psychological horror thriller of sorts, and I mean, beyond that, it's kind of vague. It makes me curious if I should try to read the novel, before the film comes out. But based on that stacked cast and all the accolades that Guillermo got for his previous film, obviously, and its major amount of wins, including Best Picture, I mean, everybody's been salivating at what his follow-up could be, and based on this cast, and I'm curious enough about the setup and the story. It doesn't wow me necessarily, but it just depends on what territory it attempts to go to, and more notably than anything, what it's rated for me.
Yeah.
And I hate to make so much hinge upon that, but I feel like Guillermo needs to work without constraints. And while I didn't necessarily like Crimson Peak that much, I thought it was stylistically beautiful, and the fact that he could do the blood in the snow and all that different stuff that if it had been a PG-13 film would have taken aback from it. But I don't know. Those two Hellboy movies were great too. So I don't. I mean, what are you going to say? So
I agree with you on Crimson Peak. It's a hit and miss weird one, but
it's kind of bland, man. I was not that like I was really hopeful with that cast too. So.
Also, the trailers I felt like were kind of misleading. They didn't really tease the hour before you get to Crimson Peak at all, and I mean that hour is kind of hard to get through.
Yeah,
right. What can I say?
Yeah, but I mean Mia and I mean obviously Loki, you know, Mr. Loki's in it, and Mia Wasikowska, whatever, and she was in Alice in Wonderland, both of them, obviously, and she's been in a few other films, most notably that Piercing movie from last year that I loved so much, which was like straight up giallo craziness. So, but disappointing movie, unfortunately. But yeah, bring on more Guillermo. I mean, ever since Pan specifically, I'll obviously watch anything he does. So.
Well, me and CP were briefly talking about the video game he almost made before we went live, and I'm just like, I love how he went on. Go ahead.
Was it the Death Stranding, or was he just supposed to be in that, if I remember correctly?
No, Death Stranding is out. It was the one before that, Silent Hill.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it was called Silent Hills, plural, right? Yes, yeah. And it also had dude from Walking Dead and, Boondock Saints, right?
The bow guy, or no, crossbow guy.
What is his name? Yeah,
it's totally eluding me, and it's killing me right now because he's actually in a film called Cigarette Burns that was directed by John Carpenter from the Masters of Horror series on Showtime.
That's a really good episode.
Fantastic, man! It's essentially, Lindsay, about a French film from like the 40s or 50s or something.
Le Fin Absolu du Monde.
Yeah, that basically when the people. It was only shown one time in theaters, and it was never shown again because everybody in the theater freaked out and started killing each other at the sight of of this movie. And so his character in the short, which is it's kind of a short, it's like 50 minutes, but basically, and Carpenter directed it. His character is consulted by this French collector to track down this film, the original print of it, and he has this crazy and like mystery search that he goes on as he's trying to first and foremost find it, but also find out what the hell this movie was about that made people go insane and try to kill each other. And it's a very intriguing episode, and great for a short. Once again, that's another one that I own. I purposely bought it. The rest of Masters of Horror hit and miss, but that episode is just primo shizzle. So
I'd want to check that out. That sounds fun. Okay, that's my list.
Yeah.
Norman Reedus.
Norman Reedus. Yeah, I hadn't searched it because I was hoping it would just reoccur to me. At the hotel that I work at, he actually filmed an episode of his biker show. So he showed up and he was up on the rooftop and we served him and that guy who plays he was on Supernatural and in any event, the name of the actor, he was on Grey's Anatomy. Holy hell, man! Negan, the guy who plays Negan. I can't think of his I can't think of his goddamn name.
The three names.
Jonathan, or Jeffrey Dean. Man, I'm thinking. Yeah, I knew it was something with J. There you go, Jeffrey Dean Morgan. Yeah, the two of them did a show. At the hotel that I work at. It's the day job, and interesting, but Normie was pretty nice from what everybody told me.
Normie was pretty nice.
Yeah, it was my day off, but
I hate it when that happens.
Yeah.
Like a buddy of mine covered my job, my shift at work once, and he served Pam from The Office that day, and I'm like, no. I mean, I'm not going to freak out on her, obviously, but hey, it would have been cool. But yeah, anything else before we call it a night here, gents?
Yeah, that was the extent of what I had, at least. Mm-hmm. So looking ahead to this weekend, obviously we're all assuming Birds of Prey is going to crush. Do you guys think it goes into triple digits of the millions?
No.
It's outpacing Wonder Woman and other things like that for pre-sale tickets, so I wouldn't be surprised.
So it could
top, I'm going to say 80.
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to top a hundo either, but it could easily do in the 90s. And I don't know. It's not going to do Deadpool money. It's not going to do like 120 plus or whatever the hell that first one did. So,
I think if it doesn't hit the 100, it's going to be damn close.
Uh-huh.
Would be my guess.
Well, I'll be the skeptic then.
You know what? Actually, I'm going to go the opposite way. It's going to make $0. Not one person is going to see Birds of Prey this week. Not even I.
$1, Bob. $1. Yes. The price is wrong, bitch. If I'm going to start thinking about Sandler stuff, anyway.
Okay. We're circling back around to Adam Sandler. Anything to plug before we wrap it up for the evening, gents?
No.
Well, we all got great channels with all kinds of great videos on them that we should all check
I have
out.
Stuff. Yeah. Well, I mean, I just put up my review of The Gentleman today, so that is that's fresh to check out. I'm still reviewing Picard every single week, and then this Friday, Cecil and I are starting our Lock and Key, all the craziness associated with that. Joe Hill, son of Stephen King. We've got lots of content coming with regards to him, comic book reviews, the actual series proper, and various other things. So yeah, it's going to be fun. And make sure to tune into the Oscars this Sunday. I'm going to be doing that morning a pre-live show, making some predictions about all of the categories, and hopefully I can get through stuff like the two popes before that, so I have actual accurate perspective. So yeah,
cool. I can't wait to see all that. Yeah, and Oscars next week. Yeah, so I guess the next we'll be talking about the Oscar.
We'll be talking about with an extra party.
Yeah, okay.
I was Chauncey gonna come on?
Yep. I was trying to keep that a secret, but yep.
Oh, okay. Fail, Fuego, fail.
It's okay. Yeah. We're gonna be 4 deep on Monday.
It'll be fun to have a new person around to shoot the shit with. I can't wait.
Mm-hmm.
I got a lot of movies I got to watch between now and next Monday. So we can.
Well, we'll have a lot to talk about with the Oscars and Harley.
Right. Oh yeah. Have you guys seen all the the Best Pictures?
No.
The only one that I still have to take in this week is Little Women. I've seen everything else, reviewed everything else, and there's a part of me that, just like with the two popes, I feel like I need to go and use my A-list to watch Bombshell, because they have two different, nominated women in there. So even if the topic isn't, the subject may not be my thing, I feel like I need to.
It's not that bad.
Yeah. And it's not even from a political standpoint, because I went and watched Vice and loved it last year. I'm like very middle of the road in my politics. I'm a registered independent for a reason. It's just that sort of stuff doesn't compel me as much. So
right,
anyway.
Of course,
I agree. Well, I just counted. I only have to see 3 movies actually.
Ooh.
I'm doing better than I thought. Go me. But yeah, no, this has been a great show, guys. I'm still working at the kinks of not being an awkward white guy. So I'm going to say howdy do and good night.
Adios. Peace out.